Aurelio Matucci said he would keep Torrance safe, but he recently incited mob violence against a beloved teacher on a Facebook page. This isn't the first time he used his influence to impose his will on others. He uses his office to promote the views of his racist buddy, Arthur Schopper. We don't elect people to abuse their powers to bully residents. The city needs to censor Matucci. I support Black Lives Matter and National Action Network.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor, council members. Thank you for hearing my concerns tonight. Keep going. I'm here asking the city to censor one of your own. I realize that you said you don't take actions on orals. I did submit something in writing, but I wanted to share my thoughts verbally as well. I realize this is an uncomfortable request for all of you, but it has escalated to a point where if you don't take action, it will be neglectful. My request for censure is for Councilman Matucci. He has repeatedly abused his position and his influence and his power. I am going to give you just one example today, one that is personal to me. Last Friday, I read messages written by Councilman Matucci on a Facebook group called the Coyote South Bay Activity Group. I literally froze in fear. As I read his angry words, I just froze. He launched into an intense personal attack upon a teacher, a well-liked teacher, one that did not attack him and was unnecessary, and there was other methods to handle the situation. There was no surprise that his base within the group that he posted came and rallied to his call for support and his call for action. One of the posters in that group posted an image of a rifle with the caption that said, "Silent but deadly." My blood ran cold. I literally couldn't breathe. I believe I forgot to mention that my loved ones go to the school of the teacher that he was attacking. It's Riviera Elementary School. My niece, who goes to Richardson Middle School, had just days before gone through active shooter training where she got to learn about how to find shelter and take cover and protect herself. It was extremely rattling, but what was more rattling to hear was that Aurelio Matucci did not denounce the behavior. Despite the calls of a concerned parent who also had a student at that school, he refused to back down, as did others. In fact, they only attacked the parent for saying, how can your response to a teacher be to post a rifle? But this group is turning into a mob. This is not safe. They mocked her. It went back and forth with the exchange until she could not get closure. She finally tagged the Torrance Police Department. They actually continued to mock her afterwards. Gun violence in this country is very serious, especially at our schools. Obviously, Torrance Police Department is teaching them about gun violence and teaching them how to protect themselves. To see that a council member, one of our own who ran on protecting us, is literally riling up a base who talks about murdering and killing on a constant basis is highly disturbing.
Your time is up.
And I hope that you guys will read my letter, read others' letters. Please consider censorship or censoring Matucci and trying to bring him into some form of control.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I ask you this evening further concerning the uncomfortable matter of requesting to censure your colleague Aurelio Matucci. Thank you for hearing me tonight. Tonight, I know this issue is uncomfortable. However, I've been to several city council meetings. The most recent was November 27th. I also sent each of you a letter in early November. I'm very gratified to see that the council listened to public opinion, deliberated, and took action. Although it's not the action that I wanted, I understand it's a start, and it's something that the group of you agreed upon. However, since that time, I and all of you have become aware that a third grade civics writing project seems to have torched a firestorm. Last Friday, your colleague, Councilman Matucci, posted some material that was submitted to the council on Facebook. As Katrina Groover just outlined, there was backlash. I'm coming to you tonight saying that I understand you all to be examples to the community of how to have productive discourse, how to keep the community safe. I feel that this most recent event that Councilman Matucci took part in was a grave departure from that standard. I would like to ask you to consider what you feel is the appropriate means, but please make clear that there is some consequence to handling what could be civil disagreement in what could have become a violent manner. Please, I beseech you, think about what the community is looking at here. Thank you. Good evening.
Matter. Okay, going on. I am deeply concerned that Councilmember Aurelio Matucci is illegitimately using his position as a bully pulpit to harass and threaten a popular school teacher on grounds that are far beyond the proper scope of his elected position. A blatant abuse of power and a totally unprovoked attack. He has publicly promoted unfounded speculation about her, both on a personal level and has even made threats to disrupt her employment, not going through proper government channels, instead boasting about approaching the media about his personal vendetta. He has even evaded transparency by speaking even more brazenly in a private Facebook group, the South Bay Coyote Activity Group, yet failed to call out a picture of a rifle accompanied by a very disturbing comment. This is not reflective of the transparency or conduct of an elected official. In acting this way, he threatened the freedom of speech of this teacher who was simply trying to educate her students based on her more sophisticated understanding of this political issue. He has been involved in making threats, or at the very least has been behaved in a threatening manner towards this teacher. His actions have created a liability for the city. There should be training for elected officials that this is not acceptable public or private conduct. This doesn't even touch upon his close and cordial association with white supremacists. The question I would ask why is this man in government at all? I call for disciplinary action to be taken against him, such as the immediate censure of this rogue city council member. Frankly, if he had a shred of decency, self-respect, or concern about the local community, we'd have already seen his resignation. Thank you.
I'm a 21-year resident of Torrance, and I have two children in the Torrance School District, and I have two teenagers, and both of my teenagers know that they would have their phones removed from their possession in a heartbeat if they participated in the cyberbullying the way that Councilman Matucci has recently. He is picking a fight with the Torrance teacher. Now, as a constituent of Torrance, and as she is as well, we have the right to disagree and to voice our disagreement. I have two children who have come up in the Torrance School District, and both of them around third grade had a writing assignment involving writing letters to the council. I do not remember exactly what those letters were all about. I do know that they discussed them greatly in class. They took it very seriously and were very proud to be involved in civics lesson. Councilman Matucci could very easily have turned this into a civics lesson. He could have written back to the classroom explaining the council's decision and or even addressed the class himself. But instead, he posted his post included the teacher's name, school, address of the school, and even her room number. Now, you would have to be in full flight from reality to not see this as dangerous in today's day and age. My student at Richardson Middle School has also recently gone through the drill, the active shooter drill, and it was traumatizing for an anxious child. I would like to request, first of all, I had hoped to request an apology from Councilman Matucci but I see that he is conveniently not here today. Also, as his posts in question have also conveniently disappeared overnight. I'm trying to take that as a positive. Perhaps he does realize the wrongness of his post and has taken it down so as to not further inflame the matter. I'm not so sure. An apology, though, would go a long way. I'd also like to ask the city attorney to codify guidelines for our elected officials for social media use to make it clear that this kind of abuse of constituents is unacceptable. And I would also like to join in the request for censure of this councilman for abuse of power. It is far different when a constituent writes on her private Facebook page than when a councilman writes something personally attacking a constituent on his Facebook page in a public post that is available to all, a public Facebook, a personal Facebook page on which he does identify himself as a member of the Torrance City Council, and I think that is very embarrassing. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your thoughts.
Torrance, the city of Torrance, for 21 years, just like Jennifer. Appreciate you guys all working so late. I'm glad it's not as late as the last time I was here, which was 1 in the morning. So I'd like to echo.
You had to remind us about that.
You've gotten into evidence. It's been provided to you, the Facebook postings and so on, so you've seen all that, or you have a chance to look at it later. And I think and I'm sure what you're thinking, the viewpoint you're taking from this is, as city officials, what does this mean to the city of Torrance? It's certainly a liability. If something bad was to happen, that would be very bad for the city of Torrance, both in terms of reputation, in terms of financial liability. Lots of bad things would happen. And posting threatening things like pictures of rifles on a Facebook page that others see and comment on, it's not good. And this is in a page that's active, where a city council member is active and started the post. It's not good. So I think censure is something you should consider. But we should also be thinking about training and regulations, any kind of threatening behavior, whether it's on social media or anywhere else, by city employees, city officials. I don't know what processes are in place now. Maybe there's some process that could be executed already. But if not, I think you need to think about those processes. Okay, that was my point. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Councilmember Rizzo.
Thank you, Your Honor. Such a joyous time of the year, and I kind of hate to be a little bit of a buzzkill here. But I'm a little troubled with what has been going on as a result of one of our council members here. We have a lot of stuff going on, and what bothered me about it is the fact that Friday we had to send police officers to one of our local schools because of potential concerns of threats and or violence at that school. And that was as a direct, from what I can gather, as a direct result of what was going on within his private Facebook group. And as I look at it, I'm sitting there going, you know, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but 32 years, we live by certain rules, or I live by certain rules, and one of the rules I had to live by was that my actions while on duty or my actions off duty could not bring disrepute on the agency. And we're in that situation right here. The little thing was called conduct unbecoming an officer, CUBO. And that if your activities while off duty brought disrepute to your agency, you could be held accountable for that and you could be disciplined for that. I kind of think this is a similar situation here. We are public officials, and our actions could in fact bring disrepute to our city. And this might be one of those situations. Maybe yes, maybe no, but we don't have enough facts. Okay? We have a lot of claims and counterclaims right now. We need to sort these things out. Is you know, the issue with an educator with TUSD, that's a separate entity. That's for TUSD to sort out, what they're going to do with their employee. As far as the city of Torrance goes, we have an elected official that represents the city of Torrance, and we need to sort out, did he have any culpability in what transpired? So as a result of that, I mean, we had to send officers out to a school because there was concerns about the safety of the school and the safety of the children as a result of these activities. So with council's concurrence, I would like an item to be brought back to us. I realize it's going to be a ways out here, but I would like an item brought back to us so we can discuss whether or not do we need to conduct an investigation? I mean, do we need to hire a third party, independent third party, to dig into this issue, conduct an investigation to determine whether or not somebody representing the city was either in violation of either law, policy, or procedure, and give us the results of that investigation to determine whether or not that has occurred. At least that way, we can make some kind of judgment as to whether or not there's calls for censure or it doesn't call for censure or any action on the part of this body.
I think it has to be explained to the public who are watching this that being elected officials, we were hired by the people. And it's all the voters in the city of Torrance hired me, hired Mike, hired Milton, hired George, hired Tim, hired Jeff, and hired Aurelio. And we do not have any power over each other because you are our bosses. You are the people who put us in power. So I agree with you. There has to be some way, you know, we don't take people out in the back and take them over to wood pile anymore. I think we have to look and see what can be done. Like you said, if there was a violation, if there's not, then what is the recourse that we have? I totally agree with that. I think it's something that's very needed, especially when you're talking about new mediums that probably were never thought of 10 years ago, 20 years ago.
And I would agree with that. Maybe there needs to be some adjustment in city policy.
Yeah.
Whether it's an adjustment in our ethics policy or whether it's an adjustment in city policies on these particular issues. So we're new ground here. So, Councilmember Goodrich.
I think Councilmember Goodrich wants to be heard.
Just had a question. Would this all? I've heard from some members of the community they're concerned about potential profiting from the sale of certain items related to agenda items that are before us. And so would your motion include a look at that?
I think the entire activity needs to be investigated and taken a look at. I mean, I've heard the same thing from the public, and this is of concern. And I think the whole issue and potentially his activities within that issue need to be examined independently. I don't know. You know, I've got calls for, you know, censure, not to censure, that he's well within his rights to do what he's doing. Maybe he is. I don't know. That's the problem. So that's why I think we need to have another set of eyes, independent eyes, take a look at this and examine the entire, and examine the activities and you know, give us some feedback as to, yeah, is there any violation of law, policies, or procedures?
Thank you. Councilmember Herring.
Thank you, Mayor. Want to say that a couple of things. Number one, that I'm disappointed that Councilman Matucci is not here tonight because I really would like to hear from him. And there has been quite a firestorm that's been created in the community. and not to say that they're sides or anything, but I would like to state for the record that I too had some concerns when I received copies of the letters from the children, and I wanted to be sure not only was it a civics writing lesson, that they were writing of their own volition. So I contacted the superintendent of Torrance Unified School District, Dr. Manning, and brought it to his attention and shared some of the concerns that I had. Dr. Manning then, at the time, was unaware. He investigated as the superintendent, talked with the principal, talked with the teacher, and then he got back with me to share his findings. I was satisfied with the findings that Dr. Manning related to me. I'm very concerned that how things were shared on the social media, and I agree with Councilman Rizzo that we should look into this, but as the mayor has stated, all of us here are elected by citizens of Torrance, and citizens of Torrance, we work for you. You are our boss. We know as elected officials, we have a code of ethics that we do live by, and we should live by that at all times. I'm wondering what would, if we go forward with having an investigation, and I guess this question is for the city attorney, what would then be some of the possible results of such a said investigation beyond censure or recall or what?
Obviously, the investigation could range from anything to there is no violation of law or policy or procedure, or obviously it could find that there was. If there was, the council is mostly limited to censure. Obviously, if there's a violation of law, however, that would most likely get referred to the district attorney's justice system integrity, or public integrity division, sorry, it should be public integrity division, justice systems for attorneys and police officers. So we go to their public integrity division for their investigation if there was a finding that there was criminal activity here.
Okay. Again, my concern is that the teacher and the students seemingly was put at risk, and with police having to be called out to the school for fear of security. We all know what has happened throughout our nation when it comes to school violence, bullying, and certainly we don't want to be responsible for putting any of our children in danger at all. So I understand what Councilman Rizzo is.
And that's my concern, and I understand your concern that he's not here this evening. However, in that item coming back, hopefully he will be here, and he will be here. I don't know how that would play out, whether he would be able to discuss it at that point, since it's focused on him as an individual and his role here, but that is my biggest concern, that we had a situation that was created that put our children in one of our schools at risk.
So if I'm counting with my fingers, I think we have at least a majority concurrence. Do we have everybody's concurrence on this? Okay, so we have concurrence to bring an item back. Okay, to address the issues that were raised by Councilmember Rizzo.
Anything else from staff? Any clarification for staff?
Just for clarification, so I can kind of, what I've heard here obviously is the Facebook posts, and then additionally there was a reference to essentially profiting off of sales of the coyote items for the hot matters that came before you. Is that correct?
That would be correct. That's apparently something that Councilman Goodrich had heard, I'd heard as well, in that, that I guess the website that you would purchase these things from was associated or connected with him.
So obviously the direction, if the council, when it comes back, would, they can be clarified. That's what the item will be discussing now.
Yes,
That's when we
to
come
clar-
back, the council can give further direction on.
Right.
If that's the direction to move forward with the investigation, what it wants to be covered. But that's the general right now.
You're right, yes, yes.